Welcome into Off the Hook Sports. I am Caleb Calhoun. Dave Hooker is out today, so we bring in Will West of the Sports Animal. Will, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Caleb. I appreciate it, man.
Yep, no problem. We have a lot to get to today on this show. We have a question about Joey Aguilar's style of play and if it fits what Josh Heupel wants to do. Jakobe Thomas has entered the transfer portal. What's the real motivation behind that? James Pearce taken by the Atlanta Falcons. Tennessee leading the nation in football, women's basketball, and men's basketball combined attendance for the second straight year. Is this going to continue? This day in Tennessee sports history, stat of the day, and Steve Kiner has passed away. I'm going to remember him at the close of the show. It was, before we dive in, remember, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn the notifications on. The show is brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Will, before we jump in, I am making a prediction that last night will go down in about 10 years as one of the worst days in Tennessee professional sports history, because I am a Titans fan. I'll just be straight up with you. And I do not like the Cam Ward pick. And then also in the playoffs, Ja Morant went down with a really brutal injury for the Grizzlies. And I'm a Grizzly fan because I'm from Memphis. So it hurt both ways.
I love Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is an absolute dog. Like, that guy, I love his mindset. I love the fact that he went from Incarnate Word at Washington State to Miami. I love the clips we've seen of him and Shedeur Sanders working out, and God bless, he just wore Shedeur Sanders out for being soft. Like, that guy's just intense, man. Like, he is incredibly intense. You know he's going to put in the work. My only concern is, does he fit? What Callahan seems really rigid with what he does with a quarterback. If I have a guy like Cam Ward, I need a Jaden Daniels-like offense, and I don't feel like that's something that Callahan's going to do. Not that you need to run super counter or anything like that the way that Washington did last year, but I need to find new and unique ways to use his legs and his ability to roll out and have like levels concept or do some orbit, and that's not something that Callahan likes to do. And so he likes his quarterbacks to throw from the pocket and get the ball out, deeper routes, deep choice, a lot of stuff like that, and I just don't know that the fit's great. But I don't know if you saw the Adam Schefter report. The Giants offered 2 1s and multiple other picks to move up from 3 to 1, and the Titans said no. They wanted Cam Ward.
Oh my gosh, yeah. See, that drives me crazy. And look, you're right overall with Cam Ward. Cam Ward has natural leadership abilities. I saw it at Miami, but I think the thing that frustrated me was that you're right. Callahan's offense, it's not going to work. It's almost like when Jim Mora Jr. forced the West Coast on Michael Vick, as we all remember 20 years ago, which was a total disaster. But then your Giants, of course, I know you're a Giants fan, and they got Jackson Dart. They went for the weaker arm guy who they believe may have the better intangibles.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Jackson Dart's good enough. Just point blank, I don't. I think, look at what he was without when they lost their top receiver. He was not the same guy. The Florida game might have been the worst quarterback game I've ever seen by an SEC quarterback, to the point where a lot of people I know who are professional gamblers were saying that got through the game. And I'm like, no, I think he sucks. And I think that's what's going on at the end of the day. And so, I mean, let's be real. He's Daniel Jones if he was a Paul brother. That's what Jackson Dart is. I am not happy about that pick, but whatever. Let's just at least we didn't give up what the Falcons gave up to get James Pearce. Like, at least we only gave up a 2 and a 3. We did not give up, or 2 and 2 threes. We did not give up next year's 1.
That is true. Let's just say y'all are trying to recreate Eli Manning, because you first went for a David Cutcliffe protege and Daniel Jones, and now you went for an Ole Miss quarterback. But you didn't get a David Cutcliffe Ole Miss quarterback together.
Nope, we did not. Nor Manning.
Or Manning. Yeah, I guess that last name helps too. All right, let's dive in to today's tough question. Again, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to start with talking about Joey Aguilar. That's still been the story of Tennessee football for the week, as Joey Aguilar transferred from UCLA to Tennessee on Monday in what was an effective swap for Nico Iamaleava. We've talked a lot about his physical tools, his intangibles, and everything like that, but we haven't specifically talked about how he fits into Josh Heupel's offense. So the poll question is up. Is Joey Aguilar a fit for Josh Heupel's offense? That is today's tough question. It is brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys, banksandjones.com. Will, I'm going to start with you. Is Joey Aguilar fit for Josh Heupel's offense, and how does he fit in general?
Yeah, he's a better fit for Josh Heupel's offense than Nico was. I have equated it this way. Nico is Amazon dupe Drew Aller. It's if you know what I mean, you don't want to pay for Lulu, so you go on Amazon and try to find the closest thing, or you don't want to buy bird dogs, so you buy you know what I mean, the hawk cats from Amazon, and it's made in a similar factory or something like that. That's what Nico is to Drew Aller, and I believe that Joey Aguilar is that for Dylan Gabriel. He's far more of a Dylan Gabriel type quarterback. What you're going to see is he doesn't have a great arm. And like if you go, I went back and watched last Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 10 games of his from the 23, 5 for each 23, 5 from the 24 season. Against Clemson, he's running for his life and he's just trying to make a play. And there were some dumb throws that were made there. You watch the Georgia State comeback that they had in 23, App State. He throws an interception that makes that Jarrett Garantano Kentucky interception look like a great decision, man. like and it's just, he was dumb, and he doesn't have a great arm, but God bless, he gets the ball out quickly, and he literally doesn't care the next play. Look at Hendon Hooker. That was not a guy who took care of the ball when he was at Virginia Tech. He comes to Tennessee. Josh Heupel's system limits the amount of mistakes that you have to make. You just need the ball out quickly. That's the thing Nico doesn't do, is get the ball out quickly. Nico needed a guy to be scot-free for him to throw the football to him like he was it in a game of a freeze tag. And like that guy just had to have space. Joey Aguilar will throw a guy open. Joey Aguilar will know where he wants to go with the football pre-snap based on what the defense is giving him. And he's going to get fooled a few times because of that. He's not going to throw the ball 50 yards, 60 yards in the air, I don't think, on a dime. But what you will see is something that I wanted to see Nico do last year, which is, hey, I'm watching Chris Brazzell on a vert go straight at the sideline one-on-one. Put the football up and let this dude make a play. That's literally the thing that he does. Brew McCoy was that receiver too. Now, he was hurt a lot last year, but I think Joey Aguilar and I think the Dylan Gabriel type quarterback is a better fit for Josh Heupel's system than the 5-star Johnny Football pro passer, 220-pound guy that can spin it, quotation fingers.
You know, it's funny you bring that up because we talked about yesterday, and it seems like Josh Heupel, the quarterback developer for his system, is a success, but Josh Heupel, the scout of quarterbacks, is not good. And I mean, we're talking about the guy that went for Joe Milton when Hendon Hooker was so clearly a better fit for his offense. But, you know, you just brought up Dylan Gabriel. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but, you know, Josh Heupel had Dylan Gabriel, and he went and got Brandon Wimbush for Notre Dame and tried to start Brandon Wimbush over Gabriel his first 2 games. I'll get to Joey Aguilar a little more in a second, but it seems like if that's the case, why is Josh Heupel continuing to fall in love with the cannon for an arm over everything else?
I think splash plays. He wants splash plays. Now, I am of I do some consulting work, some marketing consulting work on the side. It's kind of a side hustle that I do. And one thing that I've had to say to a few clients is they're so focused on quarterly profits. And I'm like, you don't get quarterly profits by focusing on quarterly profits. You get quarterly profits by focusing on your overall profitability and success, right? And that'll lead to you having quarterly profits. You don't get splash plays by trying to force splash plays. You get splash plays by, look, if somebody's in that last year, Brent Venables threw a 3-safety shell, an unbalanced front at Tennessee, and then everybody else mimicked it, and it was tough. Like, Tennessee could run the ball on it, but they could not throw the ball downfield on it, and Heupel kept wanting to go for the splash play. And I think you could have gotten it if you would have tacked them short until they get out of that 3-safety shell. If you just take 6-7 yards a pop and make them bleed to death, they're going to get out of that because that's football, right? So it's one time Derek Dooley said to us years ago, he was complaining about Jim Chaney off the air before an interview. And I asked how Jim was, and he said, maybe it was Heather Harrington that asked. One of us asked how Jim was because we love Chaney. And he said, you know, Jim, he'd run the power every time until they stopped it if I let him. And my thought was, if they can't stop it, why are you not running it? You know what I mean? Like if the defense last year was giving Nico 5-6 yards on short passes, why did Tennessee get away from that and try to force the ball downfield in a double triple coverage? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think he wants the splash play, but you have to do, and I don't remember the game it was. Jordan Rodgers said it perfectly last year. When they're giving you a 3-safety shell and your corners are 10, 12 yards off the line of scrimmage, it's called taking the access. You just get the ball out quickly. There are other ways to attack it. You can go from the pistol, roll your quarterback out, get levels concept and use levels. That's what Lane did with Crompton to get him to work, was split the field in half, give him 2 or 3 levels of guys to throw to. And it kind of broke him open when teams were just going 2 safeties on Crompton saying, I dare you. You're going to try to beat us deep and you can't throw it underneath. So I dare you. There are other ways for Team Tennessee to attack them. But I think Heupel just wants that splash play so badly that he's willing to force the splash play instead of taking the access, forcing the defense to adjust to him, and that will open up the splash play. One way I equated it last year, Caleb, I know I'm being long-winded, sorry, is Steph Curry. If teams are double teaming him on the perimeter, Steph's going to pass the ball to the open man. If someone is up in his chest on the perimeter, Steph's going to go by them and hit a layup. You don't have to just shoot threes because that's the thing that you do in basketball. And so I think Josh Heupel last year tried to be a coach that said, we want 20-yard passes downfield. Literally, defenses were saying, we're going to give you anything but 20-yard passes. And they just kept forcing the ball downfield. So I think he gets enamored with having the big 5-star arm that can give him the splash plays.
Yeah, I could see that. And also, remember, his offense first took off because he developed this offense with Joe John Finley when he took over at Missouri's OC. And it first worked with Drew Lock, who did have a big arm for whatever else. But as far as Joey Aguilar goes, let me push back a little bit on a couple of things, because I agree with your point about the turnovers, because I never really worry about quarterbacks who are turnover prone in Heupel's system. He just doesn't dial up a lot of plays that puts the quarterback in position to turn the ball over, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
At the same time, in terms of reading the defenses, I don't think there's much of an upgrade you can get there because, well, I don't think it's that hard to read defenses in this offense, if I'm being honest.
Two-read system. You're right. You're absolutely right. This is a two-read system and go. Now, the thing you need to do, though, is quickly get the ball out of your hands. That's the thing Joe Milton did not do, was quickly get the ball out of your hands. Nico never quickly got the ball out of his hands, and which was interesting because in the Iowa game, it looked like Nico made very quick decisions and then almost like he was overthinking it, trying to force the offense instead of just going and playing football. Joey Aguilar is Pablo Sanchez. That dude's just a sandlot dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what he is. And so he's gonna
Great reference.
He's gonna get the ball out of his hands. That's what he's going to do. And so I love that for Heupel's system, even though it doesn't seem like it fits. But you're right. You don't have to like be able to read the entire field pre-snap from in Heupel's system. But the other thing is, and this is going to be the big test, I think, for Tennessee. People on the player side were telling me Tennessee went to, so usually in Heupel's system, it's very run and shoot. You do what's called run to grass, right? The receivers just run to the open space, the quarterback reads, and the receiver read where the open space is together to get the ball to the quarterback's hands. Last year, they didn't do that. They had dyed-in-the-wool routes. Tennessee's coaches would say it was because Nico wasn't ready yet and couldn't read where running to grass was. People know around the players were saying, no, this is what they wanted to prove, that they can get wide receivers to the NFL, so they wanted to have a legitimate route tree. We'll see this year which one it is. But I think Joey Aguilar is a great fit for run to grass, the same way Hendon Hooker was a great fit for run to grass. I think that Joey Aguilar, if you want him to run deep choice and all verts 25 times a game, good luck, because that's not his game. That's not his strength.
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, BanksandJones.com. A quick message from them, and then we'll get to our poll question, and I'll ask another question about Joey Aguilar.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
All right, as far as the poll question goes, is Joey Aguilar fit for Josh Heupel's offense? Yes, 94%. No, his arm isn't strong enough. 6% will. So most of the people agree with you. I'm going to keep it on this for a second and ask, because we're talking about his lack of arm strength. And I'll be honest, when I watched his recruiting tape, I fell in love with Nico because of his deep ball when he was coming out of high school. It just was such a nice touch. Is it? I know what you're saying, that he's not going to consistently, have those deep 50-yard shots, but if they pull the shell, if they force defenses to drop the shell coverage, can he hit those run to grass, pass over the tops to Jalen Hyatt like Hendon Hooker was hitting in 2022?
I think he can hit those 12-yard slants, right? Those deeper slants. I think he can hit those, like the mid-range stuff. I think Joey Aguilar is going to crush that. The short stuff, Joey Aguilar is going to crush that. To me, I watched Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, Steve Young, you name it. How many guys made a living on short passing and getting the ball in space to your playmakers quickly and let them go make a play, and then running the football, spreading the defense out horizontally. Jim Chaney would use your inside receiver would always go to the sideline, the outside receiver always go to the middle of the field. You create a mesh situation, and also you stretch the field horizontally, and then you run the football vertically. That you can make a living doing that, especially at the tempo that Tennessee does. And then when somebody blows it, that's when you have this splash play. So I think that you can be very effective in this offense without having to dyed-in-the-wool deep ball. But because, again, like, I don't know how much you watched of Oregon last year. Gabriel doesn't have a great deep ball, but what he does and what Aguilar does is they get the ball out quickly. So instead of that 55 yards and it's on a dime, what you're going to see is 20 yards downfield, your guy has to step, the ball's already in the air, landing in his hands. And then can he run after that? Because if you think about it with Hendon, there were deep balls that they hit. Most of those touchdowns were just he hit his receiver in space, and Jalen Hyatt was a good enough athlete to make something happen with his legs after the fact. So I think you have that. Now, does Tennessee have that receiver? Yeah, I'm friends with Kevin Simon, and he was a scout for a dozen years in the NFL. He does not believe Tennessee has a Bayless Jones or a Jalen Hyatt. They have a whole lot of Brew McCoys, and that's kind of what Tennessee's receiver situation is. To me, that means you are going to get fewer of those big splash plays or guys making plays like a track star like Jalen Hyatt was. You're going to get fewer of those. So I think I don't know that you'll see all the splash plays this year but they weren't there anyway. So that, to me, that's not much of a loss, because while Tennessee was trying to force it, there wasn't a chance in Hades that defenses were going to give that to them anyway.
Fair enough. The one scouting thing I saw in Joey Aguilar that was a red flag to me was at least his second year at Appalachian State, someone said he looked like Brett Favre without the arm strength.
Yeah, without velocity.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. But I would say the guy who phrased it a lot better than I did, and I'm going to steal it from him right now. J.D. Pickell from On3, he played wide receiver at Baylor. He phrased it this way, and I think it's that I wish I would have thought of it personally. If you look at the ceiling for Nico versus the ceiling for Aguilar, it's not close, right? Aguilar's a 15-story building. Nico's a 25-story building. But Nico lives on floor 7, floor 8, and you're hoping he gets to floor 10. Aguilar's already on floor 12 of his 15-story building. So he's almost reached what his potential is. But today, I'll be real. I told people at Tennessee, when they were asking what they should do, I said, go get Brendan Sorsby. Right? But that was before I thought you could get Aguilar. And then once I found out they could get Aguilar, I started watching everything. But go get a guy who's a better college quarterback, who's never going to play in the National Football League, who wants to come here to big-time college football program and be a college football coach and learn this stuff from Heupel. And to me, because, that was a lot of the issue, was Nico's family. Frankly, Nico didn't trust Joey Hall, so they have him ready. And so that, before you got into the hurt feelings about the initial On3 report, which is the real reason that Nico left, there were questions there with Joey Aguilar. He knows he's not playing in the NFL, so he's going to go make $1 million. He'll have 2 degrees when he finishes school, and some booster will give him a job, or he'll work with somebody who's smart when it comes to business and open up Aguilar's whatever restaurant he wants to, or something like that. That to me is what you want in Josh Heupel's system, because it's just not conducive to putting dudes in the league. And it's not Josh Heupel. It's built on the Briles system. There are 0 Art Briles quarterbacks who have made it in the NFL. It's just probably not going to happen. So that's why I don't know that I don't care if Faison Brandon's here. I don't care if George McIntyre's here, because I don't know you need all that. But if you have it, it's nice. It's rims on a car. But, I would much rather have a working car with a good transmission that can drive well. And if I end up having the rims, that's cool too.
Yeah, he's Steve Spurrier approach. Steve Spurrier did not care who his quarterback was in the 90s. He just knew that he had track stars on the outside that defenses couldn't cover. So, and
Chip Kelly did the same thing at Oregon, right? Mariota got, and look, people will say this about, I've seen a lot of people say, and I know Nico's family has said, Joe and Hendon aren't doing that well in the league. Hendon doesn't know how to play quarterback in the NFL. Hendon couldn't throw the forward pass at Virginia Tech, right? And then he had the physical ability. He did not get developed. And I'll say, Kevin Simon I was told this about Jeremy Pruitt's staff. Kevin Simon was the one who identified him and said, take a chance on this kid and get him to transfer. He transfers here. Josh Heupel shows him how to play quarterback because Pruitt gets blown out. And Josh Heupel's system made Hendon Hooker a guy that could get drafted. Josh Heupel's system made Jalen Hyatt a guy that could get drafted. I'm a Giants fan. I watch every game. Jalen Hyatt cannot play. Like, he is not good. He's just not good enough to play in the NFL, and it's not close. He's too small, don't know how to run routes, isn't particularly physical off the press. But Josh Heupel's system got that guy drafted in the league. And so, to me, I think the system's good for the player, but it doesn't matter if he's a pro-style prospect, and it doesn't matter if he's a first-round pick, in my opinion.
Totally agree. Portions of the program brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. Other news related to Tennessee. Before we move on, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button again. Ring the bell, turn the notifications on, and leave a comment. All right. Tennessee safety Jakobe Thomas entered the transfer portal on Thursday. Jakobe Thomas had transferred to Tennessee from MTSU a year ago and was a significant part of the system last year. Tennessee's safeties include guys like Andre Turrentine, Jordan Thomas getting back healthy, but Jakobe Thomas did figure to be a part of this. So, Will, I'm just going to ask you first, what's behind Jakobe Thomas entering the transfer portal in your eyes?
I don't know the specific Jakobe Thomas situation. I will tell you there are other guys at Tennessee, because Tennessee has 21 guys in the transfer portal. We don't have all the names. There are other guys at Tennessee are just being told by agents, we can get you somewhere else, right? There are other guys like Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson just wants to play football. He knows what's up, right? Like, he'd probably not go to the pros, but if he wants to play football, the belief was Larry Johnson was the right tackle. When you had to pay David Sanders double what you thought you were going to pay David Sanders because of the Ohio State flip threaten, then you have to start David Sanders day one, which means Larry Johnson wants to play football. He's going to have to go somewhere else to play football. That or just be a rotational tackle. I think with Jakobe Thomas, it could go either way. Jakobe Thomas could be I'm looking for money, because for whatever reason, Tennessee doesn't usually lock their guys up until they threaten to go to the transfer portal. Like, so, I mean, look at that. That's the thing that, again, this was the thing that everybody got mad at me for saying about Nico of, well, Mike Matthews threatened to go to the portal, and Boo Carter threatened to go to the portal, and Cooper Mays threatened to go to the NFL, and Dylan Sampson threatened to go to the portal. Like, at some point in time when they threaten to go to the portal, that's not a them problem if it's everybody, right? It's either a you problem or it's an everybody problem. I think it's a you problem. I think Tennessee is over their budget in NIL, and I think if you want Tennessee to pay you more money, you're probably going to have to threaten to go to the portal or enter the portal and then come back out if Tennessee gives you a deal. But with Jakobe Thomas, it also might be that he just wants to play football, and he's not going to get there from here. But there are some dudes, like there's one player, and I don't want to put his business, I don't want to name the player's name because he's a young man, that straight up his agent just told him, you need to enter the portal. We're going to get you a lot more money, and the offers aren't there. And so that is problematic. So I don't know which one this is with Jakobe Thomas. Is this because he's looking for more money from Tennessee because everybody enters the portal or threatens to enter the portal? Ricky Gibson, right? Ricky Gibson was promised he was going to get a raise. Tennessee said, we'll take care of you after spring practice. Another school comes in and says, we will give you boatloads of money. Ricky Gibson's like, I don't want to leave, but I'm going to enter the portal if you don't pay me. So that report comes out. Ricky Gibson gets paid. Ricky Gibson's still here. So it could be either way, that it's money or that he just wants to be a starter, and he's probably not going to do that at Tennessee right now.
All right. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Member FDIC. Life made better. Bank on it. Jakobe Thomas, I'm going to call it, entered the portal over money, and will be back on the Tennessee roster within 2 weeks. Real quick message from Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank.
All right, well, where do you stand?
Can I bring up one point on the Jakobe Thomas thing? Here's the tough part, right? In this era of NIL, you're just not afforded depth. So unless you want to overpay for depth. So and especially everybody else is dealing with that too. Georgia last year, a lot of their struggles was because Georgia had an injured center and an injured guard, and they didn't have the depth that they used to have because all of their backups transferred. So the idea of a guy who can start at Purdue or somewhere like that and can go make, I mean, like, did you see the law? There's a lawsuit right now going on in the state of New Jersey where a Rutgers player is looking to had to end eligibility rules, and Greg Schiano testified on his behalf. And he said the reason why he should get to play is you're limiting him. He's making $550,000 as a safety at Rutgers. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're Jakobe Thomas, you want to play at Tennessee for 150 grand, or do you want to go start at a lower level Big 10 school or Big 12 school for 450 to 550 grand? So that's the question that it's tough to ask a kid to do that. Just suck it up for your team. Man, none of us would do that. If you're telling me I can make 3 times the money before I have a family and I'm a single dude, I will be gone. That's just capitalism at the end of the day. But it could be about money, but it also could be about playing time. And the unfortunate part is playing time equals money. So I think it probably is more about if you're a starting safety at Arizona, you're going to make $450,000. You're a backup safety at Tennessee or a rotational guy, especially with Tennessee's current NIL situation, you might make 150 to 250. It's just so much more money. And so, and if he's probably being told by whoever his agent is or handlers, you can still make it to the NFL. I mean, long shot on that one, I would say puncher's chance. But I do think playing time equals money usually. And the unfortunate part is no one gets afforded depth anymore in big-time college football.
For the most part, I agree with you. The reason I would push back and say Jakobe Thomas will be back is I don't think so. Let's remember when Ricky Gibson entered the portal. He entered the portal after Jamal McCoy tore his ACL. And so he knew that they were going to need him to, I don't care what anybody says, Jamal McCoy is not going to be 100% at the start of the season. And so they're going to probably have Ricky Gibson guarding team's number 1 receivers through at least the Georgia game and probably through the end of September. And by the way, Syracuse isn't exactly the easiest offense to go up against in their opener. So I think that's one of the reasons he held out. I think Tennessee now, they lost a safety last week. They've already lost Christian Harrison. They lost another safety last week to the portal. So they're thinner at safety. Jordan Thomas had all the hype going into last year, but he's coming off of injury. So I think they're a little concerned. I think Jakobe Thomas knows that he's not a rotational player. I think Tennessee really actually needs him. And so this seems like a leverage move.
It could be. And I will tell you, Ricky Gibson wasn't going to enter. He was going to wait, and he was waiting because he got told, you're going to get a bump after spring practice. And then we got right before spring practice, or we'll take care of you later. And he had not been taken care of yet. And I do believe Tennessee wanted to wait till after spring practice to this transfer portal window, let some guys leave, free some money up, because you had to overpay for Mike Matthews and Boo Carter and David Sanders. You overpaid for them. So you're paying Mike Matthews like he's one of like that Ohio State kid. You know what I mean? That's insane. But either that or let him go. Those are your 2 choices, right? Because somebody else was going to overpay him. So I think that with Thomas, it could be about money, but if it's about money, that's probably not a great situation because probably means Tennessee's struggling with it right now. And I also think he wants to start because if you start, you get money. And that is the other side of it. But he could be a starter. I agree with you on that one. And I think you probably convinced me on that one, Caleb, is that guy could be a starter somewhere, right? He can be a starter somewhere playing big-time football, making $500,000 a year. And so somebody will give him that money, and he's going to look at the end of the day. But I was told expect safeties to enter the transfer portal because of Jordan Thomas, that they feel really good about him. So they expected him. I don't know if they expected both Slaughter and Thomas to enter the portal at this, though. I don't know that Tennessee expected that. But Tennessee's in a weird spot when it comes to NIL because they had a certain budget, and I feel very comfortable saying they were over that budget because of Boo Carter, Mike Matthews, David Sanders. They were hoping for an influx of cash. They took $1 million off the books with the Nico situation, with Nico going versus Joey Aguilar, and really $2 million because every SEC quarterback's making 3 and change. You know what I mean? Every starting quarterback. So you were going to have to pay him 3 and change if you wanted to keep him. So really you're saving $2 million there, but you were already over your cap, if you will, that the boosters had given you. And so it was going to be a tough situation. You're going to have to make cuts somewhere to be able to get those guys. Because do you want Boo Carter, Mike Matthews, David Sanders, or do you want Slaughter? Do you want Thomas? Do you want backups? Those are your choices. I would just as soon have depth. I would. If it were me, I would have just said, that's great, David Sanders. You're a freshman. I'm not paying you piles of dough. I'll just you can go to Ohio State. I'll start Larry Johnson and sign another guy, and I'll have depth there, and then I'll just go steal a tackle out of the transfer portal later on, and I would just look at the group of 5 schools as the minor leagues. That's what I would have done. It's not what Tennessee did. They wanted the 5-star recruit. They went and got David Sanders. He's a 5-star recruit. I look at the Arch Manning Nico situation. That's a lot of money to pay some of these young guys. I would not do business that way if I didn't have to do business, especially if I'm in I don't want to say cash poor situation like Tennessee is, but Tennessee does not have Texas money, Texas A&M money, Ohio State money, Michigan money, even Alabama or Georgia money. They're living more where LSU is than they are where Ohio State is.
All right, it sounds like you're saying Tennessee is playing the game the Seattle Mariners played a few years ago in free agency when they gave Robinson Cano $300 million. Or playing the game Dan Snyder played with Washington for so many years, where he overspent on a couple of key players and then was just totally bereft of talent across the rest of the board. Are you saying that's what Tennessee's doing in their NIL?
I would say a little bit. Look, Tennessee's old head, big money guys that you've heard about forever are just not down with it. And I feel very comfortable saying this, hearing it from one of them. They're not down with I'm handing an 18-year-old a bunch of money who hadn't done anything yet. And the market's insane, right? Like it's nuts right now. And so it's like, you're really going to pay a guy like Mike Matthews, and I'm not trying to rip Mike Matthews. He caught 7 more passes than I did for Tennessee, and I get the future's bright. But you're going to pay that guy like he's an elite wide receiver right now? That's rough, man. So I think Tennessee does not have the big-time money that some others do. But they're not in a bad situation. They're just on that second tier. But it's hard to go pay elite money for people when you live on the second tier. And you have to be very careful with it. And I think we are seeing right now that it is not good business to pay young guys and to go boom in recruiting. They're recruiting high school players. It's the lifeblood of your program in the past. But I'm looking at it right now saying, man, Texas is $6 million into Arch Manning before he's good, right? And Tennessee paid Nico, how much money did they pay him? 4 and change before he never was that good. Best he was a game manager last year. Jackson Arnold was making over $2 million at Oklahoma, and he was terrible. It just wasn't, and it's not his fault. He's young. So I don't know that it's in the best interest of anybody to be in the top 10 in recruiting right now, because it just doesn't seem like, look, we saw a few years ago, first couple of years, if you were tops in the transfer portal, it never translated to wins. And right now what we're seeing is I probably am not going to pay the elite guy, but what I'm going to do is go get a lot of guys, and honestly, Rick Barnes it. And I'm going to bring up my guys, my young guys that I've cherry-picked and hand-selected, and I'm going to develop them, and then I'm going to go to the transfer portal to fit the other needs. Because I just – look, something's going on with Tennessee and money with NIL. And Spire keeps saying, no, we're fine on money. Well, then why do your guys always threaten to enter the transfer portal? And that you don't see that anywhere else. That's not happening at Georgia. It's not happening at Alabama. It's not happening at Florida. That a guy like Dylan Sampson that ends up being the SEC Player of the Year threatens to enter the transfer portal for you to give him money. Ricky Gibson, and again, I'll give him a pass in the Ricky Gibson situation because somebody came to him and offered him piles of dough. And if Tennessee got him close, he was going to stay, but he's not stupid. But I think Tennessee's in not a great situation right now from an NIL standpoint for football, I will say. Basketball, I think they're doing okay. But for football, I think Tennessee is struggling right now.
Well, that actually brings you to a point I've talked about. I don't think Tennessee's going to be ahead of the curve on this, but I think somebody's going to be really ahead of the curve because I know there's schools pay the coaches, NIL is boosters that pay the players, and boosters also help fund projects. So the money's all similar. The money's technically not in the same pot, but effectively it's all in the same pot.
It's just moved money. It's not new money, right?
Yes,
it's just
exactly.
moved money.
Yeah. So one of my arguments is that there's going to be a school to figure out, why don't we go cheap on a coach? And then we got more NIL money to spend on the players. And I don't know who the first school that figures that out is, but there's going to be a school to figure that out.
I pointed this out many, many times. And a part of it was because Lane, and I don't have a personal problem. Like, I liked Lane when he was here. He's fine. Lane went nuts about how much money players are making. I guess right after the season ended in December. And then I pulled it up and I said, okay, based on Ole Miss football revenue, Lane Kiffin is making about 9% of the total overall football revenue for Ole Miss football. You know what percentage of the football revenue Mike Tomlin's making with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now?
How much?
0.01%. The amount of money that coaches are getting paid is stupid. Now the amount of money players are getting paid is also stupid. So it kind of started when the coaches started making that much money. Honestly, coaches should make about $2 million a year if you want to go based on what they should make from the amount of revenue that a football program brings in. But that toothpaste is probably not going back in the tube. and they're just going to keep making more money. The thing that to me has to happen is they have to start monetizing college football and looking at it like a business. I don't know if you saw the Dabo Swinney piece yesterday where he said, we're going to the Super Conference soon. That's happening sooner rather than later. You have to get to a point where, like, look at Tennessee's schedule this year. What percentage of those games suck? Are just bad games? And frankly, you're not fired up about it at all. And then go to your NFL schedule, whoever your NFL team, and especially if your NFL team is competitive. What percentage of those games suck? Not many, because they're going to make sure they monetize every game as much as they humanly possibly can. The model for college football monetization is completely broken, and especially in an era of revenue sharing, and you're going to have to change it. And I also think people, like I'm in my 40s, Caleb, people my age, and I said this for 20 years on the air, my dad's generation would give you millions of dollars to be able to walk through the locker room and $100 handshake players and to be important. My generation will not, right? Like the people I know who are super uber crazy rich, you know what they want? Their 10 tickets in the luxury section, you know what I mean, the yeehaw section, and their luxury box. So instead of getting $5 million from a booster that year, you're getting $300,000, and it's a guy making the same money, and that money goes from somewhere. And you have some boosters at Tennessee, and I hope I'm not speaking completely out of school or burning anybody. You have some big time boosters at Tennessee who cannot wrap their brains around paying Mike Matthews 7 figures to play football when he caught 7 balls last year. Most of these guys are really, really good business people. They cannot wrap their brain around the idea of we're paying for this. We're supposed to recoup the investment in NIL, but I'm not seeing this guy do a single ad anywhere, and I'm not seeing a single dollar get recouped. And that's not a Tennessee problem. That's an everybody problem, right? Like, who in college football are you seeing do big-time ads out there? It's not happening. And the reason why is it's all priced. Like, we've done this a lot. It's priced so stupid. Like, it's so dumb that no client can make their money back. Like, whoever from the marketing side has blown this in NIL across the entire nation. It's not a Tennessee thing. You can't pay $50,000 for a college football player to come on somebody's car lot and they make money on that, or even $10,000. Now, $2,000, they can make money on that. $10,000, nobody can make money on that. And it's everywhere around the nation. So some of these boosters at Tennessee that have lots and lots and lots of money are looking at this saying, we have the stupidest business model in the world, because they're about myopic about Tennessee. It's everywhere. Nobody is recouping the money that they're putting in an NIL because all of the marketing plans are stupid. In the collective's defense, they have to have enough money involved in it that the player actually shows up. Because if you're paying a 19-year-old $1 million and you tell him, hey, you need to show up for this thing that's $2,000 and you get 40% of that, is that kid going to show up for $800 when he already has $1 million in the bank? I don't know that he necessarily is, but you have to be able to figure out a way to get them there and recoup some money, because people who are good at business, like people who are billionaires at Tennessee or high 9-figure earners, are not going to be guys that say, yeah, I'm just going to hand you $5 million for nothing. You know what I mean? And let you use that and you're never going to recoup the investment because there's no business plan. Probably ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I talked with Dave yesterday. I said there's different levels of like the 1%ers and wealthy people. There are the 400,000 to like 4 million who they just want to live a happy, comfortable life, whatever. Then there is like the 4 million to 100 million people that, you know, they got money to blow, and they might blow some money. But I've said this before. If you're somebody who ever got to be a billionaire, you don't do vanity projects for money. Like they don't do that. I mean, we talked about this with Phil Knight. Phil Knight is not about to just throw money, no matter how much Nike sponsors things. He's not about to throw money if it doesn't. I mean, this is a dude that uses child slavery in Bangladesh to make his clothes. Okay. And most billionaires do things like that. That's how they get their billions. They worship money over everything. They're not going to part ways with their money so their college football program wins on Saturday. They're not doing that.
The guy that I believe is the richest guy in Knoxville right now, right? Because a lot of people moved, right? Like Jimmy Haslam moved. But I believe this guy's the richest guy in Knoxville. And if not, he's in the top 2 or 3. He lets Tennessee use one of his planes when he's not using them. He buys a box. That's it. That's what he does, right? So there's another guy I'm friends with. I'm very good friends with his son. And he is a high 9-figure guy per year and is in business with some very, if you said their name, you would know it, NFL people and things like that, with some of their businesses they run now that they've retired. He will not get money. Like, he's not going to do it. And he's just not dealing with it because he knows it's just an endless hole of suck of I'm going to keep donating all this money into this hole. And they're just not going to do it because, again, you don't get to be someone who's worth that kind of money without trying to pay attention to where your money's going, right? So, and the unfortunate part is there is no return on investment in NIL right now. Now, the hopes with the school, what the schools are doing is setting themselves up for the House settlement to get passed. We'll do revenue sharing in July, and then NIL will become NIL, and we don't care what happens after that. That's not our business anymore. That will be a better system. I just have a hard time believing that players are going to go from, like, if you think about it, I would say like basketball right now and football together at most big schools is about $30 million. They're going to go from $30 million just for men's basketball and football to $20.5 million for the entire athletics department. That's not happening. You know what I mean? Like, so especially when it's illegal, it's going to court, right? And then they're going to lose. And then we're going to do this all over again because no one wants to come up with a legitimate solve.
Yep, very, very true. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2 T's. Use the promo code HOOK. Hemp House Chat with 2T's.com. Hemp House Chat with 2T's.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. When we come back, James Pearce taken by the Falcons in the NFL draft. We're going to talk about that. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports, the show brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East.
Welcome back to the show. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville, champions look good in orange, hdknoxville.com. Before we go to James Pearce, it is time for the stat of the day, and I'm going to have a little fun one with Will real quick. James Pearce was the 7th defensive lineman in Tennessee football history taken in the first round of the draft. Will, how many of the other 6 can you name?
Probably not that many. I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, so I'm the worst historian ever. Let me see. Literally, I'm probably off the top. I mean, I know Derek Barnett was. I know that I'm trying to think of dudes that I know that I was, you know what I mean, covering. Yeah. Barnett was Dan one? Was he a first rounder?
Dan Williams,
defensive tackle. Yeah, was he a first rounder? I don't remember. I thought he was a late
Dan Williams
first guy.
Was a first rounder, but he's not a defensive end.
Oh, defensive end. You wanted an edge. Oh, so we're just looking at edge.
Right.
No, I mean Barnett. I'm assuming Reggie was kind of before my time. But
no, actually, Reggie was in the supplemental draft.
Oh, was he? Okay. Then literally I can only name Derek. That's the only one that I can name.
All right, so James Pearce, Derek Barnett, Robert Ayers, Sean Ellis, Todd Kelly, Chris Mims, and Doug Atkins were the 7.
Okay, there you go.
So going all the way back to history. So sticking with that, as we move on, again, portions of the program are now brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. Link is in the chat. All right. So, Will, James Pearce was selected by the Atlanta Falcons in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft Thursday night. He was the 26th pick. There were a lot of questions about where he would go after being a projected number 1 pick by some people a year ago. What do you make of James Pearce going all the way down to the 26th pick in the NFL Draft?
So here's the tough part, right? Everybody, I see a lot of people, and I have friends in the media. One of my best friends in the media is like, James Pearce didn't do anything. He just doesn't like to talk to the media. That's why I fell. It's not true, man. Like, there were some legitimate character concerns. The problem is, I knew dudes in the late 90s, early 2000s over there that did the same exact stuff. Frankly, far worse stuff, and they had very productive careers in the National Football League that James Pearce did. It wasn't like he ever got arrested. Now, were there problems where people were called? Yeah, maybe that happened. And the biggest thing is the difference is today's young people are just spectacular kids. They don't get in trouble. They don't have problems. They go to class. They get their diplomas. Like they are not what a football player was in the 90s and 2000s. And James Pearce was more like what a football player was in the 90s and 2000s. He also freelanced. He did whatever he wanted to do. The breakdown by Louis Riddick I thought was perfect. When James Pearce wants to set an edge and run and against run schemes, he's elite at it. But it's when he wants to, right? Like that's he did kind of just whatever he wanted to do. I'll just tell you, I've been told by 30 people. He tried to say I'm not going back into the Ohio State game because they did, because I'm a first round pick. And Tennessee convinced him to go back in, and he's not the first kid that's done something dumb like that, right? But again, things that happened all the time in the late 90s while Tennessee was winning national titles. James Pearce acted like one of those kind of athletes, and you don't see that anymore.
Uh-oh. I believe we lost Will for a minute. I'm going to try to bring him back in. Will has frozen on us. Will, if you could reset your camera and come back in, we're just going to bring you off real quick and see if you can hop back on. Will West, his internet froze out on him. Give us a quick 30 seconds, a quick message from Double D Piping. We will be right back to see if we can get Will West back on.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, we got him back. Will, if you could see the face you made when you froze, it was epic.
Yeah, I did it every time, screen grab face. Every time I do TV and they try to pull a clip from it to put on social, it's just the worst. So, but look, with Pearce, he didn't do anything. He just was a knucklehead and a little bit of a punk. And kids today aren't punks. That's just not what happens. Like if you would be people that aren't around anymore, especially remember what it was when you were at UT or whatever, how football players acted. They don't act like that anymore. Like these kids are great. Like not good, not wow, they're impressive. They will blow you away the way young people are. And James Pearce acted like an old school athlete does. Now, and in the NFL, you don't have to put up with that anymore if you don't want to. So there's some teams that didn't want to draft him. But like if you look at Jalen Carter, look at all the problems Jalen Carter had, and Philly got him in the right position, and they had a strong enough culture that if Jalen Carter got out of line, somebody was going to beat him down. And so with Atlanta, they must feel like we have a strong enough culture that he's going to comply or somebody's going to beat him down. I was told one time by Antonio Pierce, and if you know, I am a Giants fan. Antonio Pierce said what used to happen back in the day was Eli Manning would say something. He always called him 10. 10 would say it. Me and Tuck would enforce it, and everybody got in line. And then when Odell Beckham Jr. got there, the management started backing Odell Beckham Jr., not 10. And it became a problem, and we couldn't enforce that. And so you had guys like Jason Pierre-Paul and people like that and Odell who caused – and the Giants have never been good since, right? I mean, ever since that happened. But if you have a strong enough structure, I think James Pearce is fine. He's not a bad kid, I don't think. just a little bit of a punk, and he's got to grow up. And I think if you put him in the right structure, he will, and he'll be elite if you put him in the right structure. But he's going to have to be within the structure. The thing is this, NFL teams don't have to put up with that anymore. If I can go get a guy that's slightly worse than James Pearce, but I know he's compliant and he's on the field. And so like one friend of mine told me when he went to the NFL, the difference between college. At college, somebody's chasing your backside telling you be at this place at this time to do your thing. In the NFL, you show up to the weight room on your own time and you make the schedule, you get your card, you do the workout that they said. You don't do anything else. You do the card they gave you. And if you don't want to do that, kick rocks. We'll find somebody else that will. And I think for some NFL teams, they said that they're concerned he wouldn't do those things. He's not knocking over banks or anything dumb like that. He's just kind of a punk, and NFL teams don't want to deal with it.
Right. And he's and so on the field, as far as an on-field player, there's some talk that he's a bit of a concern, that he's a bit of a tweener. Do you think he's more of an outside linebacker type almost than he is a edge rusher on the line? Because it seems like Tennessee got a little bit mixed up with how they wanted to use him last year because of that, because he is a little bit small.
Yeah, I think he plays better at 235, right? Maybe 240. And I think that if you want to have your hand in the dirt, you probably need to be 245 to 255. So he's a little small. I think he's more built to be a stand-up guy, like to stand up, but can he drop and pass pro if he needs to stop and pass pro? That's going to be the big question. But I think there's another option these days, and it's why, look, I'm a Giants fan. I would not have drafted Abdul Carter that high. I don't think edge offers the same value that it used to unless that guy's TJ Watt, because Myles Garrett was a generational player last year, and his team won 3 games. Like, they just don't affect the game that way anymore. But look at Philadelphia. Philadelphia rotates 5 guys at the defensive end position, and they crush people. So I think what James Pearce is what Josh Sweat, like I think his floor, like as long as he is compliant, he's what Josh Sweat was last year for Philadelphia, where in a single game he can disrupt like crazy. But I'd rather have him more as a rotational edge piece as opposed to being a guy who's out there all 3 downs. Otherwise, I think he has to play in space, and I don't know if he can drop in a pass coverage well enough.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I've always maintained, and I've stuck with this. You know, people say it's different now from the early 2000s. I don't think it is. I would rather have a generational defensive tackle than a generational defensive end 100% of the time. I can just say that as a Titans fan, the year we let Albert Haynesworth go, I was fine with that because I don't think you pay a defensive tackle $100 million, but he single-handedly had our team go 13-3, and our defense single-handedly took a drop because of the attention he commanded in the middle of the line when he went to Washington. And so I'm totally with you on that. As far as Tennessee's coaches go and things like that, look, I'm happy. We're all happy for James Pearce going in the first round. It's always good for Tennessee to have players go in the first round, but he did have a precipitous drop from last year. Do you think just the chatter about him or the actual play on the field had a bigger impact on his drop?
A little both. I think that, look, you can watch the Diego Pavia touchdown at the beginning of the Vanderbilt game. He just freelanced, did whatever he wanted to. Wouldn't play within the system. Like, I want to get after the quarterback. I'm not here to set an edge. And he got smoked because of it, right? And he was fast enough to make up for some of that sometimes. But I think, look, scouts are watching. They're over-watching your tape when you're a guy who a lot of people thought might be the number 1 player in the draft. And when they see things like that, they're going to say, nope, not the number 1 player in the draft. And then that's going to cause you to drop. Tennessee's coaches also have to be honest about a guy. Because how do I be honest about, like, Arian Carter is quite possibly, he's at least among the most impressive people I have ever seen play football at Tennessee. Dylan Sampson is among the most impressive people I've ever seen play football at Tennessee. How do NFL scouts believe your coaching staff about Arian Carter and Dylan Sampson if they don't tell the truth about James Pearce? So I think there's a little bit of that they have to tell the truth about. You're not trying to dog a kid. You're not doing what Brian Kelly did to some of his players and stuff like that came out, that when he was at Notre Dame, he would dog his players if they left early because he wanted them to stay another year. If you don't want to do that, but you have to tell the truth. And if a guy freelances and puts himself back in the games when he's not supposed to because he wants to get his stats, things like that, a coach has to be honest about that. And says, I'm not going back in the first half of the Ohio State game, or allegedly. Coaches have to be honest about that with NFL scouts, and it's going to cause a lot of teams to say, nope. Now, all it takes is 1 team to draft you. And the Atlanta Falcons were a team that were willing to say, we think we can look. And James Pearce went way out of his way to rehab his image. I think while he was doing that, there was one other incident where he showed his backside and security and not even him, his friend showed his backside and security got called. And I know that made its way to some NFL teams. And that was while he was rehabbing his image. So there were just teams that were never going to take James Pearce. But again, it's not like he's doing anything that crazy. I mean, do we remember Najee Davenport? They used to call him Dookie Davenport. And do we remember why they called him Dookie Davenport? He busted into a girl's dorm at University of Miami and took a dump at her clothes hamper. So his nickname was Dookie Davenport in the NFL forever, right? Like James Pearce isn't doing that stuff, but he showed his backside. And I also think he surrounds himself with people who also show their backside even worse because they're with James Pearce.
Yeah, I could see that. It's I did not know that about Najee Davenport. All my mind just went to Odell Beckham Jr. I'm not going to get into what Odell Beckham Jr. got caught doing, but we all know, those who know. We found out why he's a number 2 receiver. Just put it that way. But yeah. So look, I'm mostly with you, and it's funny. It's the same with like references for a job in any profession, right? References can't lie about you because they're not going to be taken seriously when they want to praise somebody else. I mean, my college professors, if I asked, they would tell us, they're like, I'm not going to lie if you use me as a reference. You can use me, but I'm not going to lie if somebody asks me about you. So it's kind of the same thing. Will, before we let you out of here, first portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pro, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. Walk in and say, hey, Bo, Off the Hook Sports sent you. Before we let you out of here, I'm actually going to just give you one more quick funny trivia tidbit. I'm not going to ask you this one. I'm just going to tell you because it is time for this day in Tennessee sports history. And on this day, 21 years ago in the NFL draft, I think Tennessee had its most successful run of late round picks ever. And it involves your Giants because Jabril Wilson went in the 5th round to the Giants. Troy Fleming went in the 6th round to the Titans. Mark Jones went in the 7th round to the Bucks, and Scott Wells went in the 7th round to the Packers. All of them saw action on the field. Jabril Wilson and Scott Wells both became starters for Super Bowl championship teams, and Scott Wells became a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, that's wild, right? Like, so,
yeah.
But it also, like, I also thought during that time, what's happening in Tennessee that these guys were NFL Super Bowl winning starters and they didn't give you a ton at Tennessee, and Tennessee wasn't that great then. That's also one of those things that I looked at and said, are there problems right now in Tennessee during that time?
And there were a couple. Philip Fulmer basically made, we just talked about player attitudes. He made concessions for James Banks that he had never made for a player before, and it wrecked team chemistry. He sandbagged Jason Witten, which hurt him in recruiting. And also they just missed on some. I think the biggest thing, honestly, the root cause of it, Will, was that Mark Richt walked through the door at Georgia, and that hurt him being able to recruit. But the real truth of why Tennessee fell apart in the early 2000s is some of the other elite college football programs in elite states got better coaches, and it became harder for him to pluck players out of those states.
Yeah, you couldn't go get guys from California the way you used to get guys from California. But there were a lot of guys. There was a linebacker with the Eagles as well that did almost nothing in Tennessee, and then he was like a 5-year starter in the league. And I'm like, oh, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on over there? But I will tell you, some of the guys from the 90s told me back in the day that at the end of the Fulmer era, the problem, strength and conditioning. And that if you see guys not wanting to compete like that, the strength and conditioning coach is the one that puts you in there and that kind of instills that into you. And it was still Johnny, and Johnny's really good at his job. But I don't know if maybe things evolved and Tennessee didn't evolve. I don't know what the answer necessarily was, but there were a lot of dudes that they didn't get a lot out of that ended up being NFL starters and didn't do much here.
No, that's very true. That's very true. Will, thanks a lot for doing the show with me. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next Friday. Yep, have a good one. That was Will West of the Sports Animal. Then This Day in Tennessee Sports History is brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, facebook.com/sports treasures TN. When we come back, we're going to talk about Tennessee's ranking in attendance. It's actually pretty interesting. You guys will want to see this. And this is a cumulative ranking among the 3 major sports. Stick with us 2 minutes.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute.
Welcome back to the program. Caleb Calhoun here with Off the Hook Sports. Portions of the program brought to you by the UPS Store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. 10629 Hardin Valley Road. Moving on. This is an interesting one I wanted to get to. Let's play a little hot or cold. Tennessee, for the second straight year, has led the nation in the combined attendance of football, women's basketball, and men's basketball. They didn't finish number 1 in any of them, but they finished top 10 in all of them. And that is a huge accomplishment and a huge testament to what Danny White has been doing as the athletic director of this program. Leading the nation in attendance and combined attendance for those 3 sports really speaks to just how impressive this program has been. As far as the rankings, we're going to play a little hot or cold in a minute to discuss what this means, but they did have over 1 million people attend their combined games. It was more than 1 million attendees helped them repeat as the combined attendance leader. They had a total of 1,234,843 fans attend 41 regular season home games in Knoxville in football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. Such a huge accomplishment. Going to dive into that now. Let's play a little hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. CityHeatandAir.com. CityHeatandAir.com. Let's roll. Hot or cold. The question is going to be this. For each ranking, are you hot or are you cold on Tennessee improving upon that ranking next year and in the years to come? So we start with the engine that drives the train, as everybody says, football. Tennessee, according to UT Sports, had, I believe, 713,405 fans across its 7 home football games last year. That ranked 6th nationally. And their average mark of 101,915 also ranked 6th. Are you hot on that improving? I'm not. I'm going to say it. I'm not. I think there was a lot more excitement going into last year than there is going into this year surrounding Tennessee. And that was before the whole Nico saga and the Nico drama broke. I think the Nico drama has made fans even more skeptical. So I think Tennessee's going to drop in football from number 6 to probably number 4 or number 3. I'm actually cold on Tennessee football being able to maintain its attendance numbers. All right, next. Men's basketball. The men's basketball program was 3rd in the nation as they had a total of 340,436 fans come to see them play 17 home games. Their average of 20,026 fans was also ranked third in the nation, and they were one of only 3 teams to post a mark above 19,000. All right, hot take on this. I'm cold on that. I think Tennessee, with the 5-star one and done, I'm lower on them now than I was on Rick Barnes in the past. Someone's going to have to change my mind, but as I told you guys on Monday, I don't believe in Rick Barnes' ability to have success with one and done 5-star talent. He's never had it before. He has had 8 5-star one and dones in his career, and only once, and when I say one and done, 5-star one and done freshmen, and only once did he get out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament with one of those teams. That was in 2023 with Julian Phillips. Nobody believes Julian Phillips had anything to do with that team getting past the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. So I'm very, very, very cold on. I think they'll start hot, and they'll actually start better than they were last year because of the excitement behind Nate Ament, because of who else Rick Barnes gets in the portal, although he just missed on Rodney Rice, who went to USC. But I think that even if things are exciting in January, I think by February, things will fall apart a little bit. And I think that there will be a little bit of apathy set in February and early March, and that's going to cost Tennessee in attendance. So they'll still be top 5, but I just don't think they'll be number 3. I think they'll be number 4 or number 5 going forward. So that is my that's my thoughts on men's basketball. Now, women's basketball. All right. They were in, this is the interesting one. They were 4th in total attendance with 181,002 fans attending 17 regular season home games, averaging a crowd of 10,647. So they were 5th in the average, 4th in total, 5th in their average, 6th in attendance for non-conference regular season games. Second highest between Power 5 opponents. Is this one going to get better? This one I'm extremely hot on. I'm so hot on it that it could actually outweigh the drop in men's basketball. It won't outweigh the drop in football because football is just such gigantic numbers, but it could outweigh the drop in men's basketball. So I am extremely hot on Tennessee moving up to number 1 even in women's basketball next year. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say that right now. I think the Lady Vols will have the number 1 program in attendance next year in women's basketball because of how loyal their fan base is, and Kim Caldwell showed them enough to be excited about. They have the number 1 recruiting class coming in, so there is a lot to be excited about. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. We are going to give you a quick message from them, and then we're going to address what we think they're going to do overall next year and what really contributed to this higher ranking. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. All right, so the next 2 final hot or cold questions. Hot or cold? How about this? First, was Tennessee's rankings last year more due to the size of their stadiums, as they have a top 5 college basketball stadium and a top 10 college football stadium? So was it more due to the size of their stadiums, or was it due to the excitement behind the programs? Well, that one's easy. It's due to the excitement behind the programs. Tennessee was 6th in football. They do have the 6th largest stadium, so that matched. But then you go to basketball. They were 3rd in basketball, but they have the 5th largest stadium, and 4th in women's basketball with the 5th largest stadium. So it's about support for the program. What does help it is that the Lady Vols always have a base, because a base that's much larger than bases of other women's basketball programs. But no, it was actually about the loyalty to the program. So the final question: will Tennessee stay number 1 next year in its rankings? While I think Tennessee is going to slightly drop with its overall cumulative attendance because of football and men's basketball, and slightly drop in its average attendance, I think it's overall going to stay number one. Michigan's going to get close. Michigan's going to threaten them. Michigan was only 1,000 people behind them per game last year with all those games, and they were only 100,000 people behind them. But they were 100,000 people behind them in cumulative. So I think Tennessee is actually going to win in terms of cumulative. I think in terms of actual average attendance, it depends on how many more home games they play than Michigan. Tennessee played a total of 41 home games among those three sports. Michigan played 39 last year, even though Tennessee still won the average. So I think Tennessee's going to have number one in cumulative attendance. I do think they'll hold on to the number one spot in regular season average attendance, but I think it's going to be extremely close. Okay. It's going to be very difficult for them to hold on. It'll be very, very, very close. I think one of the things helping, I'm going to add a caveat though. A couple of the things, actually, I'm taking this back. I'm flipping this. No, they're going to fall. Sorry guys. I'm changing this in real time, and I usually don't do this, but I got to look at the schedules. And in football, Tennessee is going to drop below Michigan, significantly so, to the point to where Michigan's going to be number one. So no, Tennessee is going to fall to number two next year. How about that? They're going to fall to number two behind Michigan. And there's a reason they're going to fall to number two behind Michigan next year. Tennessee in football, they get Georgia at home, where they had Georgia on the road last year. So that's a game to spike attendance, but it's at the expense of Florida and Alabama, which are both on the road. So they have fewer marquee home games this year than they did last year. Michigan, on the other hand, Michigan gets Ohio State at home this year after getting them on the road last year. And I think that will be the difference in why Michigan takes a slight leap over Tennessee. Michigan will be number one. Tennessee will be number two. I think it's down to those two schools, but I think Michigan's going to get the slight edge because they get Ohio State at home, and Tennessee's going to have to visit Alabama and Florida. That's two lost chances for home football games. So I think Tennessee is going to get finished number two, but it's going to be close. This is like the 90s all over again when they had a rivalry over the biggest stadium, which was fun for that time for anybody who remembers. Portions of the program are brought to you by Work Trucks. They're all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while the other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks: cargo vans, utility body trucks with the nap height work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, remember Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and in downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go online to worktrucksllc.com, worktrucksllc.com with an X. Why risk chancing your future in business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? Worktrucksllc.com. Work Trucks will also work to make sure you have the perfect vehicle you have to have. They'll even find a perfect truck, outfit it, and make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X. LLC.com, worktrucksllc.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. When we come back, we'll close the show remembering a legendary Tennessee football player, Steve Kiner, who played in the Doug Dickey era, passed away yesterday. He is one of the most legendary and to a certain degree maybe infamous for one thing, players that ever donned an orange uniform. 2 minutes, we're going to talk about Steve Kiner.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute.
Welcome back to the program, Off the Hook Sports Show, brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio in East Tennessee. Steve Kiner, College Football Hall of Famer, legendary Tennessee football player, passed away on Thursday. He was 77 at the time, born on June 12th, 1947 in Sandstone, Minnesota, went to high school in Florida, and then attended Tennessee from 1966 to 1969, played from 67 to 69 since freshmen couldn't play back then at 66, and then enjoyed a 9-year NFL career with the Dallas Cowboys in 1970, the New England Patriots in 1971, the Miami Dolphins and Washington in 1972, the New England Patriots in 1973, and the Houston Oilers from 1974 to 1978, played in 114 games in the NFL, but is more remembered for his time in college. Steve Kiner, to get more of the stats out there for you guys, just real quick, just want to point some of these things out. He, in 1967, played in 10 games and was named Sophomore of the Year, as opposed to Freshman of the Year, because sophomores were the newcomers that year, and helped Tennessee go 9-1 in the regular season. They barely lost to Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, but they do claim a national championship for 67 because the polls came out before the bowl games, many of them during that time, and a couple of them had Tennessee at number 1. So that was during the height of the Doug Dickey years with Dewey Warren at quarterback. They claim a national title that year. Famously, I believe that, well, that's actually happened the next year. In the next year, Steve Kiner then played in 8 games as Tennessee went 8-1-1, became a consensus All-American with first-team nods from AP, Football Writers, Football News, and Central Press, was first-team All-SEC by AP and UPI, and actually played with the broken wrist against Ole Miss, but still logged 12 tackles and 2 interceptions, and helped Tennessee win 31-0. Bear Bryant went on that day to call him the best in the league since Leroy Jordan, who played for Alabama under Bear Bryant in the early 60s. He was SEC Defensive Player of the Year that year, I believe, and was one of the best in the nation. Now, then came 1969, and I'm sorry, he was SEC Defensive Player of the Year in 1969. In 1969, he played 10 games, helped Tennessee go 9-1, and win their second SEC title in 3 years, was once again a consensus All-American, and became SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He had 14 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, and an interception and a forced fumble in a key win against Alabama. And he had 5 interceptions on the season. Tennessee went 9-2 that year. That was Doug Dickey's last year as they lost the Gator Bowl. Steve Kiner is a 2-time All-American, 68 and 69. The first 2-time All-American for Tennessee in the post-integration era, because Tennessee integrated in 67 with Lester McLean, funny enough. So Steve Kiner actually is the first to have both of his All-American awards during the Lester McLean era. I will say that not everybody in college football was integrated at the time, so it was still a little bit of a mixed record on just how elite the competition was. But Steve Kiner was an absolute legend. So talking about Steve Kiner, where does he rank among greatest linebackers in Tennessee history? For those who don't know the history of college football, linebacker was not a position that was commonly used until the 60s when teams started to spread the field more. It was mostly just ends, tackles, and heck, even end. It really was just ends and tackles. Even guys that ends, tackles, and backs. That's what they were called. Ends, tackles, and backs were what they were called in football. You either played on the line, you played on the edge, you played back to defend the pass. That was it. There was no the linebacker position had not really evolved during that time. Steve Kiner was one of the first during that era. Tennessee had two others, Frank Emanuel in 1965 and Paul Naumoff in 1966. But Steve Kiner and Hacksaw Jack Reynolds, along with Steve Kiner, they were teammates in 69, really helped define the linebacker role that Tennessee became known for in the 70s with Jackie Walker. I mean, Tennessee was a really big deal with linebackers at this point because they had Jackie Walker in the 70s, who was also a two-time All-American, the first black captain in the SEC, Jamie Rotella in 72. Later, they had Keith DeLong in the 1980s, and in the 1990s really peaked with a man named Al Wilson, but also along with Al Wilson, there was Raynoch Thompson. And in the 2000s, they had Kevin Burnett. The linebacker position actually is kind of going a bit out of style now as teams are playing more nickel-based defenses and running 4-2-5 schemes. But during this period, it was really, really starting to peak. I think you got to say Steve Kiner is the third best linebacker in Tennessee football history. Al Wilson's the best. Al Wilson's the best linebacker in Tennessee football history. Al Wilson may be the greatest player in Tennessee football history. You got to say Al Wilson, number one. Number two, you got to say Jackie Walker. Two-time All-American, even more after integration. The first black captain in the SEC, was a huge part of helping to integrate Tennessee. There's a statue of Jackie Walker outside Neyland Stadium, and it's well-deserved. Jackie Walker is a legend. You got to say Jackie Walker. After that, I probably would go Steve Kiner. I think Steve Kiner is the third best linebacker in Tennessee football history. And, I don't know who comes after that. I think that's the clear top three if you're ranking linebackers. And I would maybe say you can make the case for Keith DeLong, Frank Emanuel, those guys. But I think Steve Kiner, Jackie Walker, Al Wilson, clear-cut top three. And I don't really think it's close, honestly, that those are the clear-cut top three. We're going to let you guys give your thoughts, and I'm going to tell one quick infamous Steve Kiner story. First, a quick message from Ted Russell Ford.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location.
All right, so quick Steve Kiner story. I don't know if you guys know, but the infamous 1969 single loss Tennessee had was to Ole Miss. And who knows the history of that game? For those who don't know, Tennessee started the year 7-0. They had top 25 wins over Auburn, Alabama, and Georgia. They were 7-0, and they had gotten to number 3, and they were going to visit Ole Miss and Archie Manning. The year before, Tennessee had beaten Ole Miss 31-0. So they seemed destined to actually win this game. And if they did, it was at Ole Miss. Ole Miss was ranked, but if they did, they were going to close out with Kentucky and Vanderbilt, and they probably would have been declared regular season national champions, because even though they lost the Gator Bowl to Florida during this time, champions were declared before the bowl game. And they would have even played Florida in the Gator Bowl had they beaten Ole Miss. But for those who don't know the story, someone asked Steve Kiner about the horses at Ole Miss. How good are their horses? You know the phrase, like the horses, the elite players. And Steve kind of responds, "Hee haw, them's not horses, them's mules." And yes, he referred to Ole Miss as a bunch of mules. And on top of that, Tennessee started saying Archie who? There were Archie who. Basically, Steve Kiner said they're a bunch of mules. Tennessee fans referring to Archie Manning as Archie who to try to say he was irrelevant. And Archie Manning led Ole Miss to an absolute shellacking of Tennessee, beating them 38-0. It was a brutal game. And it was Archie Manning, one of his finest performances. Tennessee was trolling him. Ole Miss, their fans owned this to the umpth degree. They sold Archie who buttons. They bragged about being compared to mules. And man, it wrecked Tennessee's chance at winning a national title. And it did all start with Steve Kiner talking trash. The ironic thing, as we all know, is 25 years later, Archie Manning's son commits to Tennessee and spurns Ole Miss. And one of the biggest rejections ever in the recruiting trail. Ole Miss fans did not take that well. But yes, that was a very interesting story with Steve Kiner. It's one of his infamous moments in Tennessee. But at the end of the day, he was still a great player, one of the greatest in Tennessee football history. So rest in peace, Steve Kiner. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell. Turn your notifications on. Thanks for tuning in this week. We are on live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll be back on Monday. Appreciate you guys all tuning in live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Again, thanks for tuning and we will be back Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, or just a great weekend in general with Caleb